I'm really excited for this next session, uh, partly because I don't get to just introduce it and go away. I'm actually moderating this panel, so I get a little time to talk to some of our panelists today, which is really great. Have you ever wondered if there's actually a place for you in cybersecurity? Like, spoiler alert, there really is, and we need you. But you don't even need what you might consider a traditional IT background to be successful. Whether you're just you're a student looking for that first job, or a career changer, or even an IT pro is looking to make a switch into security, we got some really inspiring success stories from people who have recently gone through some of those same things that you might be going through right now. I will give each of our panelists a chance to tell their own stories, but I would like to first briefly just introduce each of them. Marrelle Bailey is a community manager at Managed Detection and Response vendor Red Canary. She works primarily with the Atomic Red Team user community. She has a special interest in creating entry points and equitable opportunities for women, people of color, and other underrepresented groups in tech. Outside of her work in security, she has a special passion for helping others through trauma-informed yoga training and life practices. Christine Morency is a former physical therapist and an HBCU graduate who now works as a cloud security engineer at Booz Allen Hamilton, one of the world's leading consulting companies. She loves learning and growing and reading books about the whys behind work, technology, understanding people. As a physical therapist, she really loved the chance to help people bounce back to their best after experiencing an injury. And now she brings that same joy to helping organizations bounce back after severe security incidents. And our final panelist today, Fletus Poston, is a lead cyber systems engineer at Duke Energy Corporation. He began his career in IT and security in the mid-2000s, and since then, he's worked in a variety of different roles and given a special focus to sharing and mentoring to help others get into and grow in security. And I can also attest from personal experience that his security dad jokes are absolutely on point. So, Marrelle, Christine, Fletus, I'm so happy that you could join us today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for the introduction.
I want to start off with, like I said, giving you each an opportunity to, introduce yourselves and tell a little bit about your personal journey into cybersecurity. Marrelle, would you like to go first?
Yeah, it's so cool. Fletus, when we were going through the introduction of each other, he was talking about like the different career paths of how you get out of here and how you, or the careers that you were in and leaving to come here. And like, if you would have asked me like a few years ago, I was like a bodybuilding personal trainer. Never in a million years would would I've ever imagined that this is the space. I always loved creating connections and networking with people. And finally, actually, owner of a gym was like, I see so much for you. Like you build communities and you don't even realize it. Like find a way to make that a career. And started doing research, got my last job, which was in tech, and fell in love with it. And there's so much in tech and there's so much in cybersecurity that like creating an opportunity in this environment is like effortlessly. And so when Red Canary gave me the opportunity to become their community manager, it was like, wow, this is amazing. Like I can do what I love in the tech space. And it's amazing. It's just awesome. I could go on a rant, but I ended up using my degree to really help me, which was in strategic legal management communications, which is a long word, just shortenly to say like communications and marketing and stuff like that. And I finally realized like I could use those skills and build relationships and rapport in these environments that really need to be nurtured and cared for. So yeah, but I could go on a rant all day.
Well, you're going to have plenty of time to rant later on in the session. So, so please just put a pin in it. We'll come back to it very shortly. Christine, how do you feel about going next?
Absolutely. So my journey was really interesting. It was kind of the middle of the pandemic, and I was working in the front lines as a PT. And I mean, I think everyone during that time made like a real reflective, like look at their lives themselves, and say, hey, what else can I do? And that's kind of what I asked myself. And I'm like, what other skills, can I have? So there was an advertisement for the security training scholarship with women in cybersecurity. And they said, hey, we'll train anyone with no technical background and help you get a job in cybersecurity. And I was like, really? Like, is that really good? So I just went ahead and applied. And the thing is, I will say there is a special personality type. I think you have to be willing to constantly ask why and problem solve. And I think that's how I honestly matriculated through the Women in Cybersecurity, which inevitably led me to the SANS Academy. And so I literally just matriculated, kept trying and learning and Googling and relying on, my sisters and my friends and everyone around me. And that's how I got here. And it's just been like so surreal. The learning has been insane, but I'm just like here for the ride. I think I've just sunk my teeth in from the beginning. And that's how I got into cybersecurity. I went to the conference last year and networked with a ton of people at the Women in Cybersecurity conference, and they provided me resources, just tips and tools on how to network and get engaged with people, with customers and companies. And I did exactly that. And I had amazing mentors around me, and that's what brought me here. So really exciting.
That's a great story. Fletus, how about you? How did you find yourself in a security job?
Sure. So I stumbled into security during my undergrad. I was given a CISSP book as part of one of my electives. And the lecturer at the time happened to be running a satellite office doing IDS work. He asked if I'd like a part-time job. So I started doing some IDS work in the evenings, learning basically what an IP table was false positives, false negatives, etc. And that got me in my journey. Then I decided when I finished my degree, let's do the IT route because that's what my undergrad was in. So I interned with a large financial institute here in North Carolina. Realized very quickly that I'm not big on financial institutions, but I love the exposure I got because it was an IT audit. So being able to understand how an auditor thinks and what a process looks like, which drove me back into how I got with my employer I am today. I joined in IT doing IT service management on the front end functionally side. So I ran our change advisory board. I ran some compliance reporting. It was part of a rotational program. After that, got to do some web-based application monitoring. So I got to learn how web applications work, got to dabble in what's up behind that a little bit before moving into an electronic document management platform supporting our enterprise, both our corporate and our nuclear fleet. So at that point, that's when I really dove back into my cyber side, supporting the IAM component to that enterprise document management suite. We had several hundred member servers with several hundred AD groups and process accounts that we maintained. So I was administering and custodian of those accounts. At that point, I went back and got my master's in information assurance and started looking about how to actually take on a traditional cyber role, as I've already been doing cybersecurity at that point for over a year and a half, and moved into my engineering team that I have today supporting our SOC. So since then, I fell in love with SANS. It was an accident that I found you. I had an individual who happened to work on our quality assurance team for the on-demand program who introduced me to that. So I took my first class, Sec 401, back in 19, and then pretty much been here ever since. I've joined several of your summits. I've certified in 5GX during that time frame, and now I'm here today to talk more about why I enjoy SANS, why I enjoy cyber, and why I enjoy the mentoring piece of our community.
Awesome. Well, whoever that person was that introduced you to SANS, we're going to put them on our Christmas card list now. So, I think all of you kind of mentioned how you were introduced to cybersecurity. Like Fletus, you just said, you'd been given a CISSP book, and I was just wondering though, like, there's being introduced to something, and then there's deciding to try it out, and then you decide to try it out, and presumably each of you have decided you actually like it. And I'm just wondering, like, when When was it that you decided that you actually would like to try to stick around in security? And also, what parts of your backgrounds do you think were most relevant to your, finding the place that you really love in security?
I'll take that first.
But yeah, anybody can go first.
I'll
Sorry.
take it first. I believe my past of going through the IT route of doing IT service management, as we know, our CIS controls understanding assets and understanding the hardware behind it. Ever since I got into my current role, being able to help our SOC find the assets, find the hardware. So just having that IT service management, as we heard in several of the presentations already, was a pivotal point to help me understand how I secure something, how I protect something, and how I can continue to log that asset. So having that background of having those exposures has helped me jump into this. And then the IAM side, just understanding identity and access management. And as Christine can allude to, as we move to cloud, that is your new edge, that is your new perimeter. So just that's the interesting point that keeps me. So when I went through the recent cloud class, of just understanding that your perimeter is no longer the firewall, it's now the identity and your privilege. So just being that constant learner is what's kept me here and continues to allow me to sign in every day and share this with others. So.
Yeah, that constant learning piece. I forgot who said it. Maybe it was AJ earlier, that's not a symptom of something wrong. That's a feature of cybersecurity in general. So yeah, that's a thing that I hear from a lot of people. It's like, one of the things that they like about being in cybersecurity, especially, is that they're constantly learning new things and getting new skills and things like that. So that makes a ton of sense. Thanks. Who wants to take a crack at the question next?
I can take it.
Okay.
Okay, so for me, it had to been the first time I'd done a CTF. So I did the SAN CTF, and I think Women Cybersecurity also had us do a CTF. I had no idea what I was looking at. I had a blank web page with nothing on it, and I'm like, what do I do here? So I think that's what it was. At first, I just thought websites just worked, right? I just thought that you just go there. I didn't know there was so much behind it. And just capturing like flags, I think gave me that rush to like almost treasure hunt and keep looking and seeing what else can I do? How else can I exploit this? Like what else is just going on here? I think it's just pure curiosity, but definitely I would say CTFs were like my my way in, or the way that got me into security. And then specifically to cloud, I had like mentors telling me like, hey, think about the cloud. The cloud is like the future, where everything's kind of going. And so I was like, hey, well, how can I position myself in a good way so that I can look into cloud? So that's kind of how I got in. And the passion, I think, for CTFs, hunting, looking for, different vulnerabilities, it kind of made me passionate about that.
Right. Do you think that, like, what am I trying to say? How am I trying to say it actually? Is if CTFs were the thing that made you really interested, and you were like, hey, this is how I know I belong here. This is the thing for me. Was there something in your prior background that might have been similar that was just like resonating with you? Or was it more like, I never knew this thing existed and I really like it? I want to have more of it.
Yeah, I think I never knew this thing existed. Like literally, like I said, I knew nothing, like coming from, so it's just literally pure curiosity and how things work. In physical therapy, more so like we do examinations, right? And then we usually feel things with our hands. So making that transition to, feeling as well as using my eyes. So when something doesn't seem textbook or patient, people are all different. They don't seem textbook. I have to like do differential diagnosis, rule things in, rule things out, find out what exactly makes them different or what is it that I'm missing. So using those same like step-by-step like mental practice maps, guidelines to kind of rule out things and examine like what's going on here, that I think I applied that same logic into CTFs. And some things are just stump you. You're just stumped and you're like, how did I figure this out? But I mean, you just keep going. It's the passion to getting to the end. And I always joke with like my coworkers, like I don't stop like till I find like a solution or some type of thing that gets me closer to my solution. So, and I think, like I said, a personality type definitely helped me in getting there. So yeah.
That is a thing that I hear from, at least from certain folks who are in certain job families in cybersecurity, that they really are attracted to the puzzle aspect. It sounds a lot like what you were describing in the CTF. So great. Marrelle, how about you? When did you decide, and what made you decide that cybersecurity was the the path for you?
Honestly, in my current role, it showed me so much promise. So I'm obviously not an engineer or have any of that aspect. I come from like a more of a communications background and community building. And to be honest with you, I fell in love with this environment and this space when I realized that there is a really great potential opportunity for, like, because I come from a HBCU just like Christine, and you know, I was taught, like, there's more out there than just like some of the roles that our parents have taught us since we were like little kids. And I never even knew community management was a thing. And to find out that people could become something amazing and realize how great and how much their potential is in cybersecurity is amazing. Like, just like Christine was saying, like capture the flags or CTFs, like that's a great way for people to realize, like, wait, I can be in this. And like learning about like red teams and blue teams and purple teams and figuring out like, oh my gosh, these great avenues. And like my community Atomic Red Team, like we help people to be able to like build tests out, execute tests, write tests, like, and it's a great entry point for people to be like, wait. And recently one of the maintainers, Carrie Roberts, had this training course, and I did it and I was like, I can do it. Wait, I'm capable of doing this. Like, and at that moment I realized, oh my, I need to tell everyone that they can do this and that they can have this promising ability to have a role where they don't have to like validate that they're valuable in their workspace, and that there's just so much promise and there's so many doors that you can open in cybersecurity, and literally open another one and then realize, like, wait, like I could have gone through that door. I can still go through this door. I can go through the door in front of it. I can go to the door inside of it. Like, it's endless possibilities. And to me, that was like the drive of like, this is why I love this environment. And we're protecting people. We're keeping people safe, and we're keeping people's data safe. And to me, it's like, that's another thing that I believe in. Like, I don't want all of my medical information to just get to anyone. That's really important and that's valuable. And to know that there's people on my side that I can't even see building that out is beautiful, and it's intricate, and it deserves to get shouted out to the world. So to me, that was what, like you said, like, yeah, I got into this space from this role, but it taught me like there's so much we can do with this, and there's so many opportunities of bringing people in from underrepresented groups to the space and realize you can be that, like, you are valuable here. We want you here. We need you here. So yeah.
And I can tell that you must be in the perfect position right now as a community manager, because many of the things that you were just talking about that really excited you about it are about the community. So, so good job.
Thank you.
So Christine, I wanted to ask you a question, and I'm going to read a piece of this. You told me this. I didn't make this up. You told me this almost verbatim. I love to help people bounce back after injuries, and now I love doing the same thing for organizations after a breach. And Marrelle, kind of, you have almost the same thing too. Christine was talking about doing it with physical therapy. You're talking about doing it with yoga. But Christine, I was wondering, did you know that parallel existed before you got into security, or is it something that you found out later?
Something I found out later. Like, I had no idea that. At first, I know transferable skills, like that was a thing. I did not know that. And that's why a lot of imposter syndrome and self-doubt came into my life, because I was just like, how can I, make this like physical, like, how can I relate the two? And at first I didn't know how until I started working more with technology. And then they say the thing around technology is there's technology and then there's people. And I think over time, people kind of got lost in like understanding that there are some EQ and some soft skills and some things that you need to have when you're dealing with people. So as a physical therapist, I dealt with people, not just the patients, but their families, the doctor, the nurses, everyone in the interdisciplinary team, right? So you're dealing with about maybe 20, 30 people a week, sometimes a day, it's more than that. So we're constantly people facing. And I think bringing that aspect to the organization is another reason why Booz really, hired me, because they were just like, I was willing to just engage with people. And yeah, I wasn't the most technical person on the team, but I was willing to lean in and be a little bit more, hey, let me build a relationship with you. And I know that you're focused in your one lane on one thing, but let's look at the big picture here. Let's not like silo each other. Let's be a team just like we did to help the patient get better. So in order to make sure these applications migrate safely into the cloud, let's make sure that we are a team and that we all take these walls down and communicate with each other and keep that communication open. And there's times where I have a ton of self-doubt and I'm just like, am I asking the right question? And I'm being more detailed enough or technical enough and all that. And it's learning. You just learn as you go, and you aspire to ask questions even when you're stuck. And so I just started to like pair those two things. And I'm like, I want to be, I want to make sure that people understand that the relationship is also important, and understand that, working in your one role and your one silo and your one thing, it doesn't really help the overall like goal, right, of what we're trying to achieve here. So I think that skill is what really helped me. And in the beginning, no, I did not know that I could make that connection. But while I'm doing this, I'm absolutely like, yeah, I can be that niche, that different person that brings that different angle into this space.
Yeah, just as soon as I read that, I was like, wow, that is a great like parallel.
Yeah.
It's almost like she didn't change jobs. She just changed the fields that she did the job in.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's working. I mean, people are feeling a little like uneasy about how much I want to, include everybody and be a team. But at the same time, I do see it being more successful in helping everyone achieve the common goal, because that's what it is. We all have like a goal we want to achieve. So yeah.
Okay.
I would add to that. It's one of our leadership imperatives is work as one. So I always tell my team I'll never leave them on an island, because I may not be on the island with you, but I'll be close by in case something is needed. So I think that's something our field encourages, is if we can be a community, as we've talked about, like we build on each other. As we've talked about the last 2 days, is you learn from your successes and your failures. You learn from the growth opportunity to fall down and pick yourself back up again. So that's something we just need to continue to portray to the next person who's filling our shoes. Like, I'm trying to train you to take my job. Like, people need to stop being as protective over their role and say, hey, let's do this as one and work together and grow this opportunity so that we're secure in our organization, we're protecting, we're ready to respond, and we're defending it. But at the same time, when I step away, when I step away, you can now backfill me. So.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we have this ubiquitous saying that, security is a team sport, right? But not everybody always acts like a team when it comes to information sharing or whatever. But I think the most successful professionals and also the most successful organizations encourage that. And it's almost like multiple levels of team, right? There's the team that you work, all the co-workers, but there's also your whole organization and the broader security community, where you're learning from each other and coming together in summits like this or other conferences or papers and blog posts and stuff like that. So that's a really good point. Actually, I had a question for you, Fletus. It's sparked by a question that someone asked online. So I'm going to read that question, but I'm going to reframe it slightly. It really says, do you, some people try to get into security and they try to make that pivot and they find it really difficult to get their, maybe get their foot in the door, or maybe they find out it's, maybe it's not working out as well as they had hoped or anything like that. And the question here is, like, what do you think is the difference between your success and somebody who's not yet achieved their success in security? Are there particular things that you did, or things that you approached in a certain way that were key contributors to making you a success?
So we've heard it numerous times. Interpersonal skills, networking, being able to reach across that line. Don't be siloed off. So when I had an interest, I started meeting with people in the field that I wanted to go into, both internally and externally. So I talked with the hiring manager. I asked for a day in the life summary. I got to know what the role was before moving into the role. So can you I always tell people when they interview the same thing, ask them, what will I do day to day? What will I do on a weekly basis? What will I do on a daily basis? What do you see my development plan? So I was able to do those networking skills and say, can you tell me what your career path looks like? Can you tell me, is there a career path, or is this just a role that you're trying to fill for a niche that's going to dissolve, or is there a growth pattern? So being able to have those conversations, both internal in my four walls of the company I work with, as well as external on what the role should look like or could look like with the right push, the right drive, the right questions asked, and being being inquisitive. Why do we do this? Because we've always done it, or why can't we do this? Is it because we can't? We failed before. Going back to that failure attempt, but I knocked on numerous doors. It took me years to get into where I sat on my CISSP book for 10 years before I took the test. I still took the test eventually. It held my monitor up for about 6 years before I finally took it out from underneath my monitor, opened it back up again, and decided to actually take the test. So,
I mean, Christine or Marrelle, do either of you have any thoughts about your own successes and how, what you did, how you set yourself up for success, maybe?
I wouldn't mind sharing some things. I think coming into like the tech space, I met a really amazing woman at my company who really almost like let me shadow her and almost came as a mentor. We were in two different departments, totally different workspaces, but she showed me the promise that I had. And I think that like a lot of the things that Fletus said are super important. Like, what does my day-to-day look like? Really, like, there's always that saying of like, as much as a company's interviewing you, you are interviewing them right back, because you want to make sure that you're aligned and you can give them what they need and they can give you what you need as well. But having that mentor, she taught me that. And she also taught me like, so like for me, like sometimes I struggle with like my ADHD of like, I see a plane outside and I will stare at that thing for 20 minutes. It's probably already gone, flown away, but but I had to learn to focus my energy and focus my passions into this space and really nurture it. And she taught me a lot about like, being on my P's and Q's and, making sure I cross my T's and I dot my I's, and making sure that like I do all the things that I want to accomplish, and then seeing if that aligns with what I'm doing and what I'm working on, making sure that it's effectively, because I think for me, a lot of the time I wasn't as clear and as concise as I am now. And I had to learn like, wait, no, I need to take all the fluff away and figure out core, like what's that core? What do I really need to be working on? What do I really need to be trying to communicate to these people that I'm trying to reach and connect with? So, yeah.
Okay. I mean, we've just talked, about the things that you all have done to set yourself up for success, but there's also external forces. Some of them are also trying to help you be a success, and some of them, maybe not, maybe less so. I was just wondering, were there any times when any of you, this is for the whole panel, there are any times when you thought, maybe security is not really for me, and I need to do something else? And if there were those times, how did you get past them? Who wants to start? Christine?
Yeah, because I'm like almost every day. I think it has to do with just like being like feeling that imposter syndrome. I'm like, this is hard. Like, this is not easy, but I think it's because like, I don't want to give up. I don't want to like, say I came all this way, like why give up? And then when I finally do, I would say small wins. For me, that's how I approached it. Like small little things. Maybe today I'm able to give a recommendation that I wasn't able to before. And, I think that's what gives me that energy to keep going, because there definitely are the days I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, what am I here for? And yeah, I think, working on those small wins, continuously asking questions. And when you don't do well and you mess up, because it will happen, I will say absolutely you will mess up. The thing is that how you respond to that is important. And my parents taught me that. And, being a woman in cybersecurity, I had an amazing community that taught me that, like, yeah, you are going to mess up. It's almost guaranteed, but it's how you respond to that, what you do with that information, and how you learn to be better for the next time. Yeah, so absolutely, there's some days where I really struggle with like that, but I feel like I came so far, why not? Like Marrelle said, we all have a place here and I belong, and having that feeling like, yeah, I belong here. Sometimes it's tough, but I make it worth it, and I push myself a lot. My expectations for myself are very high, and that's pretty much how I navigate that.
Just believing in yourself expecting more of yourself. It kind of like, it almost sounds like you're saying that you just expect to yourself that you will push through the challenge,
Exactly.
and that gives you like an internal support almost to help get you through it.
And also, like I said, small wins. Anytime you do anything small, like pat yourself on the back for the small things, because it gives you like an energy to kind of snowball into something bigger. Like, have those small wins and give yourself some grace, and you'll conquer it again the next time. And yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Marrelle, looked like you also had something to say.
Yeah, I feel like for me, I struggled with like feeling like, and this is going to sound really weird, but I felt like I was like too young to know anything. Like I felt like, like who am I? Like especially graduating out of college, and I actually just saw this joke on LinkedIn of like, entry positions would be like a recent college grad with like 10 years of experience and like having like all these accolades. And I graduating, I really felt like just like Christine was saying, I was like, I don't fit in that. Like, I don't fit with that. Like, I don't have those shoes. And it was actually wrote a blog maybe like a year ago about like who's like having a seat at the table and realizing that you have one. And for me, like I struggled a lot of feeling like, especially being a non-engineer and from like a, like quote unquote, like a non-technical role, like for me, like I kept feeling like, do I have a space? Just like Christina was saying, do I have a space here? And I had to realize like, I am just as valuable as every other person at this company. We all need to be here. And it's just like, I love that Christine is like, no, we're all going to come together. We're going to band together because we all have to come, just like Lisa was saying, we have to come as a collective, because if we don't, it's so interesting. You'll see sometimes like within our space of like things kind of like falling down, and it's because people don't want to work together. And it's like, when you do, you see the growth and the promise and like things being executed at like a level you couldn't even imagine. And for me, it was like, am I like technical enough? And the woman who helped me at my last job was like, Marrelle, like you do, like, because I do a lot of writing and creating content. And she was like, is a sentence no matter what your job is? And I was like, well, yeah. And she's like, exactly. So as long as you know how to do grammar check, as long as you know how to do editing, as long as you know how to create a voice, you're doing your job. Like, just because you might not understand all the words that they're saying, that's okay. And that also taught me jargon is a huge thing. And that it's more of like creating a space of like, and actually someone did it in the Slack of like CTF. Some people might not know what CTF is. So it's like capture the flag, like informing people. And for me, that was another part of like I almost felt like that entry point was hard of like, well, they're saying all these words, I don't know what they mean. Should I know what they mean? And then you realize like, no, it's just everyone's so used to saying them that like you just have to get used to like reminding people like, let's say the word first so that people understand. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, I think it was I can't remember which session it was. I just remember that one of the attendees actually in Slack was sharing one of their favorite Google searches for dealing with that. And it's just define and then whatever the word is, and just do that all the time. Like I read that and I realized, I've been in this industry for a really long time, and there's things that I still don't know that I basically do the same thing all the time, Google. So it never really goes away. So, Fletus, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I want to add like two things. Mine's more outside of there. So I find more joy when I get burned out when I have someone else succeed. So when I see that light come on for my junior engineer or the engineer who just broke in, who can stand on their own 2 feet again. So I quickly was educating myself. I was diving into things. I was taking on everything I could. But at that point in time, I was just trying to grow my brand and my loyalty to the company. And then I quickly realized it's not it's us. So when I started taking that and moving it from a horizontal to a vertical and pushing it sideways to my peers and then pushing it down and then watching them come up is what kept me it's what's kept me here. Like seeing their light come on, seeing them have a voice, seeing them to stand on their own 2 feet, both technically and inside of the presentation point, because communication is key in our role. Like most of our role comes down, can you explain it? And I use this in a Fisher Price manner so that the most technical thing to an executive or to your colleague, if you can do that, you really understand something. If you don't, you still need to continue to study. And I'm in that sweet spot right now where I'm watching people learn things and they're using terminologies that I know nothing about, but they've grown into an area that I'm not in. So we learn from each other and diving into it. So that's what's kept me here, is watching my organization and our community, the InfoSec community, continue to grow and develop and educate and partner together for the greater good of cybersecurity.
Oh, that's amazing. I want to throw it out. If any closing thoughts, I think we have one or 2 minutes left. Any closing thoughts that you really want to communicate to our audience? Marrelle, you want to try first?
Yeah, one thing I want to say, this is obviously a new to cyber summit. And like one thing I want to say is like you can do so many different things. Like there's so many different opportunities. There's so many different avenues you can go down. But like I always say this, and it's so true because I struggle with it with myself. Like you are worthy, you are valuable, and you belong here. Like we need you here. Like you are needed. And I know that you're going to have points of doubt, just like Christine was saying. Like I've had those moments where I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I here? Like, can I even be here? You do. Yeah. Don't let those thoughts, those lies tell you that those are valid, because they're not. They're just lies. They're things that are in your head to try to hold you back. Keep doing what you're doing. It's always like someone says, it's what you do in the dark, not what you do in the light. So in those dark moments, cry it out if you need to, punch a pillow if you need to, whatever you got to do to release it, and keep going, because you will see that it's all worth it and it's all meaningful. So yeah.
I love that. Thank you. Who would like to go next? Fletus, would you?
A quick word. Be a mentor and be a mentee. So that's what I challenge you. Find a mentor and then turn around and be a mentee. No matter if you've been on the job for 1 week or 1 year, you have something to share with someone else. So you can always be a mentor and then always find a make sure you are a mentor and you find a mentee.
Excellent. Yeah, love that. Christine.
And for me, like they just summed it up so well. You guys just did amazing, Fletus and Marrelle. So I won't add anything else. Just literally like you belong here, imposter syndrome's be, but just like let it roll off your back and you definitely belong here. So that's it.
So because David opened up with a dad joke, I'll end us with a dad joke. We'll keep talking about it. What do you call a fake noodle? An impasta?
Do they have imposter syndrome?
And the last one, why does Pac-Man not use Twitter? He doesn't like being followed.
Good one. Good one.
I love it. Oh.
I'm so glad that all three of you are here to talk to us today. Thank you very much for sharing your stories. I know sometimes it's a little bit uncomfortable talking about ourselves and stuff, so I really appreciate it. I did not have as much time in this session to follow our hallway, but I can see it's very, very active. So if you have some time, hop in the hallway. I'll be in there too. And we have a lot of people waiting to engage with all three of you. Thank you very much.